As I walked around a bit, I did get a few flashbacks from what happened here before. I went through drawers, cupboards, anything that could open it. Anyway, only to come up empty-handed. Most of the stuff in the drawers were missing, only a few utensils were left behind. It seemed Gunn had ransacked the lab. I suppose it was a good thing though, saves me from gaining any memory of all those tests I had to endure over the first few days of being alive. Not that I remembered those days. I walked past the capsule that I was in before. I didn't dare to look at it though. I already felt a memory coming back to me on it. I fought my mind for a moment, but as an image still burned through, I only fought since it was giving me a bit of a headache. I remember waking to see Maria sitting in front of me. I could hear her voice. One said,
"He's awake."
Then it faded away. After the lab, I decided to find another room to look into. I stepped out only to be met by a hallway. It was long. It ended where the escape pods were, but it took you past a few rooms, and that was where the hall began, telling by a map on the wall across from where I was. I wondered if Sonic was having an easier time than I was. I remembered this hallway though. It was the last time I saw Maria. I already knew this, but my mind still went back to that last memory of her. I couldn't fight it.
The lab barely had anything, so I went into another room to look for anything. I guess Shadow didn't exactly tell me what to look for, so I guess he wanted anything with his name on it in order to remember something. So I went into another room connected to the lab. I knew places like this would have a room to keep papers, journals, anything to hold information. It was kind of like an office, but it's more of a storage room. Just my luck though. Papers were scattered on the floor, journals on the desk, papers on top of the desk as well. I read through them only to come out empty-handed, until I got to the journal. It talked a little bit about something called Project Shadow. Some pages had drawings on how this creature was made. I closed the journal up and went back on my search. I guess Gunn had left it behind from their first encounter with Shadow. Now I decided to check the desk drawers only to find a K. The initials for Project Shadow were etched into the metal. I felt it may be important as it could hold more secrets to Shadow. I took the key with me. I slid it into the first page of the journal so I wouldn't lose it. There wasn't anything else for me in that room, so I went on. By now, Shadow was going nowhere to be seen in the lab, so I walked on. I decided to go to the computer room. I had a feeling that the key would open up something in there. It's possible Gerald didn't want anyone to find it. The hallway was long, though. I wasn't in a hurry, but I still ran to the computer room. I saw Shadow in another room for only a split second. He had something in hand. I couldn't tell what it was, though. I got a bit curious, but I decided to continue onward. I really wanted to see what this key unlocked. I ran right into the computer room. It was 2 rooms down from where Shadow was. The room had a couple of old computers. They didn't seem to have been on in years. Though I wasn't exactly sure on if any of them still worked or not, it isn't like I used them before when me and Shadow last came here. I looked around a bit before finding a locker-like area. They were all locked, though I doubted that all the keys to them were still here on the Ark. I looked around a bit before finding a locker-like area. They were all locked, though I doubted that all the keys to them were still here on the Ark. But then I noticed a sticky note on the floor while half of it was sticking out from the bottom of the locker. I carefully pulled it out only to be met with words saying burn these. I felt this was what I was looking for. I decided to try fitting the key into the lock. It fit, but the lock was a bit rusty, so it took a bit before the lock finally gave in and unhooked itself. I then tossed it onto the floor, not caring that it made a noise when it hit. I was more curious now as to what I had found. Well, there was a large box. It was taped shut and Project Shadow was written on it. The box was covered in dust, but no cobwebs or dead bugs. I picked it up. It was heavy, but it was able to lift it and set it on the floor. I was met by a few journals left inside the locker, and I grabbed those and set them onto the box along with the journal I had found back in the lab. I decided to go back and find Shadow. It wasn't hard, though. When I stepped out of the room, I heard a yell.
Darn it!
Then a bang against the wall. He was in another room when I found him. It looked like a bedroom. It didn't seem to be his. The walls were a faded pink color. The bed was a twin one, but there weren't any sheets on it, only a pillow. Then there was a blanket draped to the side. The mattress was worn. This seemed to be Mary's room. I remember Shadow telling me a bit about her before. Hey Shadow, I think I found what we came here for. I spoke as I approached him. He just stood by a wall, though there was a hole in it that must have been from the bang. I took notice that blood was starting to leak through Shadow's glove where his knuckles are. He said nothing. He just nodded and left the room. I showed him to the lab. Once there, he ran to the box.
Didn't think we'd find anything. I totally thought Gerald would have destroyed everything.
Shadow said before looking back at me. I didn't say anything though. I just took the ring out and used it to open a portal back into my room. We both took a side of the box and jumped into the portal. I ended up letting go as I fell a few feet, but Shadow was able to keep hold of it. After we landed, he sat it down on the floor near my Flash comics. He decided to set the journals on my beanbag chair so he could use a chair spear to break away the tape. We were met by a bunch of stuffed CD cases, DVDs, a plushie, and an old blanket. Shadow took the plush and blanket out. The plush looked like it had seen better days. Probably been in the box for the amount of years Shadow had been locked away. It looked like a wolf or maybe a husky. Then as for the blanket, it looked worn, it had sharp patterns on it and got tears. Shadow had a look of contentment as he looked at the items, but he also had this look of curiosity. It seemed he didn't remember these items. I'd accrued to get the disc up thinking we'd watch them on the TV I had in my room. Shadow set the items back in the box once I finished grabbing the cases that had the discs in them. There were 5 in total. I decided to take them in order. Each one was numbered. I put the first disc in the DVD player. The TV turned on afterwards, but nothing played. I reached to hit the play button, but then I felt the hand grab mine before I could walk back to see Shadow.
Sonic, before you hit play, I just don't want to lose you as a friend. Whatever is on it, I just don't want to lose you.
Shadow, you're my friend and well, I don't think anything will ever change that. I just gave him a smile before pushing play. We both sat in front of the screen as the video played. Shadow's ears perked a bit as he came on screen.
Seeing Maria appear on screen caused my ears to perk up. Also, I felt a wave of sadness wash over me as I watched the screen. She held me in her arms. I was little back then. I grew over the next couple of days. There was a day on each of the sections. I didn't have a memory of me being little until now. By the end of the first disc, I was starting to tear up. Sonic hadn't noticed. He put the disc back and got the second one in. This one, though, had a lot of me going to the lab getting tested on. I didn't seem too happy, but Gerald seemed to show some affection towards me as I went with him. The tusk didn't seem too bad in this one, unlike the stuff I do remember. At least now, I have a way to remember some of the good times I had with my creator. After the tests, he'd often give me some candy. It seemed he gave me a chocolate bar, which I shared with Maria. I can see why Gerald wanted to get rid of these. I wasn't the monsters others see me as. These wouldn't prove the lie he had made up. My suspicion seemed to be correct. The third video, though, was different. It was just a bunch of pictures of us with music playing. The last picture in that was of Gerald and Maria. It was most likely taken before I was around. Gerald looked slightly younger in it. The fourth, though, that was the transformation one. Gerald started to show less attention towards me. I looked away from the screen a few times. Sonic, at one point, decided to curl up in a ball. The video showed some pretty hard stuff I had to go through in the lab. It was stuff I still remember. It's hard to believe that I was put through so much at a young age. We both couldn't watch the rest of it. Sonic decided to take the disc out, and he said nothing. His facial expression showed it all. He was sad. He said nothing as he tried to break the disc. He only bent it, but then he decided to go downstairs and get a hammer. He came back just as quickly as he had left. He pounded the disc a couple times, which caused the Tom and Maddie to come up.
Sonic, what are you doing?
Tom asked. Sonic backed up when he had spoke. He seemed startled. He dropped the hammer as he backed up from the broken disc laying on the floor. Maddie picked it up when she did. Bits fell to the ground.
What was this?
It was horrible. All those things Shadow had to endure.
Sonic replied, his ears lowered. I could feel my own doing the same. I stayed back from Tom and Maddie. I knew they wouldn't hurt me. but I didn't want to say what I had been put through. Sonic did me a favor by destroying that disc. As for the fifth one, we didn't bother watching it. 4 was horrible enough. I didn't realize I was shaking at the time. Nothing else was said much. Tom helped clean up the mess. It didn't seem like we were gone long when we went back to the Ark. I still didn't get over the horrors I watched on the screen. To put it this way, I was put through a lot of tests after, like I said before, because I wasn't able to carry Maria's cure. Gerald would often take it out on me. Sometimes I got bruises, but because of my fur, it was hard to tell. But as for burn marks, they were easy to see. Also, Gerald had tested out my abilities, as in if I could stand against anything that could potentially harm me. Probably a bad idea on his part, since Gunn wanted to destroy me before. I'm not bulletproof, but I can't exactly die from a bullet wound unless it hit one of my weak spots. I later found out where my weak points were, since it was written in one of the journals. My lower back was one of them, also my stomach. What made this hard to watch was seeing all that happening again. It was like I was reliving that moment, not something I wanted. I feel bad that Sonic saw what I went through there. At least the disc can't exactly hurt me now, but the memory is forever burned into my mind now. We had Tom hide the last disc after cleaning up the mess. I didn't bother going through the rest of the stuff from the Ark. I was done looking for answers for the night. I just had Sonic find a place where, while I sat on the bed, I crumpled up the letter Sonic had written and tossed it into his trash bin. After that, I was still shaken. No matter what, I couldn't relax after the horrors. We both didn't sleep that night.